for the series. I haven't done already, so already please call in using your computer. And the presenter and the moderator should be muted. And what we do for questions is that we ask that you submit them through the WebEx chat box. It's everyone. And questions will be submitted anytime during the presentation, and we will have the presenter address those questions at the end of the presentation. And please note that the webinar is being recorded. A few terms, in case some of you are not too familiar with the online environment. Perhaps one that's been is the LMS, or the Learning Management System, and known likely as Blackboard. Online, 75% or greater of content is delivered online. That could be in reference to programs or courses. Blended, another term, 25 to 74% of the content is delivered online. Again, programs, courses, and of course MOOCs that are massively open online courses. What put this webinar together was the fact that online enrollment has increased by an order of magnitude in the last 10 years. You compare that to post-secondary education as a whole, increased about 60%. You can see from this slide that it's double annual growth for a good portion of that period. And projected that over the next few years, that annual growth may decline to single digit. And these slides were both put together by EduAdventures, who is a consulting and marketing firm out of Boston, Mass. Of Matkin, who's the Dean of Continuing Education, Distance Learning, and Summer Session at UC Irvine, for our next online webinar, Where Are We and Where Are We Going? And I'm the ball to you, Gary.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. Thank you much for joining this webinar. In your holiday plans a little bit, maybe, as you either get or push work like I am doing faster so you can get some things done before the holidays start. Today, I'm going to talk about MOOCs and where they fall in the context for MOOCs. And we're seeing a lot of headlines and a lot of publicity about online education. And we've been in open education for a long time. And online education, I'm going to try to put the history a little in context for it, and to also then talk specifically about the MOOCs. UCI, as a member of the Coursera group, now 33 institutions involved. We have 7 courses up that we put up on September 19th. We have 170,000 enrollments in those programs. I'm going to try to bridge the area from open, online, and talk about how MOOCs fit into what I see as a long-term pattern developing, and hopefully that'll give everyone a little bit more understanding of what's really happening. Let me tell you that this presentation is available on share.net, and you can get slides from this source. First, I'll talk about 2 converging themes. Just a moment. I don't see the thing. What I see 2 very, very converging themes. The first is open source is becoming commercialized, and a huge amount open courses out there. Apple, the Software Consortium has over 25,000 open courses available through its system. And iTunes U and YouTube, they have huge amounts of open stuff. And this material has become a tremendous, has created, there's a huge amount of it. It's created a mass, and that mass is now getting a lot of attention. And that attention is focused, particularly the MOOCs, on creation of low-cost degrees, or lowering the cost of education. So on one hand, you have this huge amount of open stuff available, and on the other hand, you have this very, very strong demand for low-cost, high-quality education. And MOOC brought these two things together in a very interesting way. I'm going to briefly talk about both of these elements and then go on to what really is happening with MOOCs. In addition to those two very large converging themes, there's several other things that are happening. The first is that there's a much more interest in improving teaching and learning through online delivery. We're getting very sophisticated through our LMSs and other things on providing on learning, and improving teaching and learning is becoming an important theme. Secondly, as everybody knows, there's a huge concentration now on assessments, competency-based education and assessments, learning based on competencies, dedicated competencies. So a lot of concentration on assessments, so much so that the courses and the pathway to the assessments are less important now. So a lot of focus on assessments. About the proliferation of open materials, that supply of open materials shows no sign of slowing down. It's getting bigger and bigger every day. More and more YouTube lectures are put up or whatever. So it's a big and growing thing. Fourth, there's more and more need for the incorporation of open material in regular or traditional degrees. Again, mass of this open stuff, and it's high quality. It's a little hard to find, but it's very high quality in some cases. Is really a driver in terms of getting people to look at and use open material in degree programs. We have a non-advantage here. We know that faculty members want to do their own thing, but when you present them with high quality learning material, it's hard for them not to do it if they understand how to use it and can use it easily and well. In fact, there's a growing effort, I think, to create viable and sustain learning communities. We do it sort of in a small scale when we have a course. Now we've got massive online courses with huge, some people say a community, it's a crowd, but in the event there are communities surrounding it that now the MOOCs are, for instance, presenting peer review and so forth, and so we've got aspects of very large learning communities, and that's a trend that's going to continue. Talk about the low-cost degrees. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Obviously, it's a worldwide need. We know that UNESCO says that 98 million graduates of secondary education will not be able to attend college in 2025 unless we do something. And to do something, we're not going to be able to create new campuses on a physical basis. The cost of degrees in the U.S. is going up. We know that there's a big emphasis on that, and we're seeing that cost come out not only in consumer complaints and by it sometimes by students over increased tuition at public colleges, but we also see it in terms of here a graph showing how the tuition has increased for students and parents, and it showing up in student aid issues and default student loans. The student debt is a huge issue that's now becoming important for our economic livelihood. So decreasing the amount people can buy with their credit cards, and they're also hurting. For instance, it was co-signed the loans, and now can't buy their own homes or enjoy their retirements in the way they wanted to. So it's a huge problem. But what I'm suggesting is that what we're looking at is a situation in which we're working rapidly toward a point where anyone can learn anything, anywhere, anytime for free. That was a vision a few years ago. Now I'm saying it's a prediction. Moving very, very quickly toward this kind of situation. And once I'll go through very quickly here that two elements of education are now very much free. First of all, we've got content, which is free and getting, as I said, getting a larger and larger store of free information. The whole notion of MOOCs and the provision of those MOOCs by institute of high reputation is an example of the fact that content is there. Communication is becoming free or very, very inexpensive. And so two elements, content and communication, that are so important for education have become free, but now clearly we're getting into the notion of free learning pathways, which is the ultimate sort of. Those learning pathways are heading very much toward degree creation and low-cost degrees. So let me just point out that there are a lot of sources of open education. We've seen, I classify them as repositories, open courseware, and utilities. Utilities, I call iTunes and YouTube a utility. And open textbooks are also coming along. But here's an example. Repositories, Merlot has 38,000 learning objects, Collection 17,000. Consortium, skipping down a couple bullets, shows 25,000 courses. As an example, UC Irvine, here we have 90 courses online, 300 video lectures, 17 learning objects on our own site. So it's an open site. It's an example of what one institution has done. And of course, we have massive numbers of video lectures on YouTube and iTunes, and they have a huge Facebook initiatives that are very, very rapidly. So with all that, we've got it. I'm commending the fact that we have this huge mass of open stuff that's for any of us to use in our classrooms or in our learning pathway production. Let me talk about MOOCs. The first learned about MOOCs was a Stanford artificial intelligence program. But let me trace a little bit about where they came from. And the point here is how rapidly this came forward at us. So in 2011, Saturn Thrun attended a TED Talk by Salman Khan of Khan Academy. By July, Thrun and Norwig, his colleague, had announced the AI course at Stanford. October, front page shows these two courses, I think, having 109,000, and it turned out to be 160,000 enrollments. Very well unusual. Artificial intelligence taught at a Stanford level, exactly your most popular, I have a popular course. They had 160,000 enrollments. By of that year, an MITx were launched. MITx was the predecessor of X, in Stanford, which happened in 2012. In January 12, Coursera was launched. So here is that between 2011, if you look down July 2012, we have, since Coursera has 16 universities and 100 courses, August of 2012, Coursera had 1 million students. So between the instance of a MOOC, July 2011, and later, several for-profit startups course, full of one of them, and had 1 million students signed up. And of course, November 12th, I'll get this later on, we announced this for our partnership with ACE for academic credit. I'll get to that in a minute. So, artificial intelligence at Stanford launched this whole MOOC idea. There were predecessors to it. Athabasca University had I think, a program with 2,700 students in it. So about a year earlier. So this is the first, but it was the big one. It was the biggest one to come along and add us. Excuse me. They said two startup organizations began. Coursera was one of the first. X was quickly followed by edX, in Harvard. Of course, Udacity was also sprung out of Stanford's department. Several others, which list, but I just want to talk about these particular instances. Because that's the one I know the most about. I just negotiated a contract in September. We have 7 courses on it. And as most of you, was launched in April. They launched in April. It was started actually in January. Raised $16 million in funding. It currently has 33 partners, 1 million followers, and 200 courses. Youngest partners, I'll show you, are 7 international partners. It really did not have a business plan, and that was a plan of developing ways of making money, and that was confirmed today when Dan and I had a 2-hour conversation with Dabler, who was one of the co-founders of course, they're still trying to work that out. The cohort model, so courses start and stop at a particular time according to the institution, but it's up there all the time. So it's not an open like open courses or what's happening on YouTube. So the cohort model, we're the world's best courses, and to do that, it's allowing only top 50 universities. So we're in the group, but I know that MOOCs will migrate quickly to other elements of the higher education system in the United States. Listing of the 30 institutions, most of them are universities that everybody knows about and can relate to. And as I said, there's international universities, including the University of Jerusalem and the University of Edinburgh and University of Toronto and so forth. So it's not only a U.S. situation, it's other universities are getting involved from other countries. How does Coursera plan to make money? Well, they list in their contract several ways that they expect to make money. Or the first are really what I consider the most logical. It's certifications. The notion of taking a Coursera course and then taking kind of assessments, bullet number 2, taking some assessment that makes sense, getting a grade or some sort of assessment of the learning, and certifying that learning in some way that makes sense for employers or for academic institutions. That's probably the most logical way that any of these MOOCs are really going to make money. There is, in Coursera and Udacity, the notion of being employees or identifying people who are really smart at, let's say, computer programming or something, and buying those people to want to employ them, and then put 2 together and somehow making money of that. That's, I think, a less way of going to this. Employer university screening, tutoring, maybe adding tutoring or manual grading to a service a service that might be attached to these courses. Incorporations in to somehow get the corporations involved in degrees or doing training inside. Sponsorships of courses by institutions, licensing courses to community college or others. We've got a few little examples of that, and charging tuition of some kind. It conflicts with the notion of openness, but somewhere along the line it might happen. In addition to these possible possibilities of making money on the Coursera contract, which are stated in the Coursera contract, I believe that there are some unstated models, unstated because it would is among the institutions, and that is, first of all, advertising. If you've got 1.7 million students, it's hard not to see that as a base that could be used for promoting certain things, and so selling student data and personal information, not something that anybody wants to put out there, but it certainly is important. You have 100 times of somebody that's interested in computer programming, that data very useful to some people. And ancillary materials, adding materials to the open offering that would pay for instance, textbooks. In some cases, books that are being presented on Coursera and other places. If you want to learn this stuff, it would be a good idea to buy a textbook, pay $100 and buy a textbook. That's the selling of ancillary materials to help the learning is something that's not stated again, but I think it's a good possibility. When we entered Coursera, the first 34,000 signups, we gave them a survey, and we got 11,000 responses. So I'm going to answer who the heck are these people who are taking these courses? What do they want? A little bit of an answer on that. We found that half of the students want to these courses primarily because they expect to be enjoyable or fun, and then also stated that some course they selected would relate to their current or future career plans. But here is a graph of the actual responses we got, and it's curious because if you look at the most popular reason for doing it, I think the course will be fun and enjoyable. Except that these courses are offered by top-ranked universities, and they're university-level courses. And by the way, they take a lot of work. And so, from Princeton required to read, 3 or 4 books a week, through chapters, do assignments, and so forth. So it's fun in the sense that you're really doing something and so forth. There's not exactly the leisure time activity or the investment that some people think of as having fun. So there's some in this, and obviously that very I was just talking about has something to do with the people that complete the course. Some about 15% just curious about what it's like to take an online course. I wanted to try out. But responses here, people are relatively, except for viable, most people have a specific reason for taking it that has to do something with their future or some particular interest. So that's our result. We're going to try to get more survey results and see if we can learn a little bit more about these students. So about Coursera, it's obviously not the only model. edX is a big item now. It was founded in May. MIT founded it with an announced $60 million in backing. It Harvard MIT courses. We should add University of Texas, now George Washington University, have become members. announcement about the University of Texas, but as of just this week, I think, just this week, George University announced it was entering. And these parties have to pony up some money in order to join, and so that's sort of a barrier to entry, along with the prestige institutions. Have some success. Their early courses, really early course or two, enrolled a lot of students, and it was the main course they offered was on integrated circuits, so it was a highly technical field. With the notion that certificates of completion will be issued by edX, and they'll actually use the name of the university, so that if you complete a course, you would get a certificate with Harvard X or MIT X or Berkeley X on it. And that's a little bit unusual and surprising to me. Most of the time, universities are pretty careful about how they use their name and what they attach their name to. And I'm sure exactly how institutions have squared the idea of a learning assessment with the right of authentication for students and a learning assessment. But this is what they're doing, and it's a very interesting idea. Certificates are free, but they do have announced plans to charge something for them. A nominal fee, they said, but I don't know exactly nominal would be. There is a plan charge for a modest fee. A quick run to edX. Let me tell you, Udacity, quite a different model in some respects. Get launched around the first of this current year. Has a students and 16 courses. I think they expanded their number of courses now. It's not a cohort model. It's an independent study kind of model where you start a class anytime it's self-paced. It's all the time, so if you wanted to study a part of a chemistry course, for instance, you could do that, and you wouldn't have to wait for the course to come around. The courses are categorized in terms of level, and they get a certificate of completion from Udacity. Some of the instructors. Now, Udacity is generally not associated with institutions. It's more associated with individual faculty members of those institutions, and faculty are signing these levels. So it's not exactly an institutional commitment or institutional worry about they're being used on something that is like some sort of a transcript or something. I'm not sure exactly how probably the professor's affiliation with the university is clear, but it's independent of the institutions, and it's not yet institutionally sponsored. It ties at student skills. They've actually sent asked over 1,000 people if they can send their resumes to employers, and to really trying to help with job placement and recruiting. And again, they don't have a model for actually figuring out this. Their exams are proctored for a fee, so they're making a little money there. And their certificate options would include secure examination, something of course is also looking at. Quickly, MOOCs are being tied. MOOCs and OpenCourseWare are being tied to these. Excelsior and Saylor Foundation have an agreement where Excelsior will give for Saylor Foundation courses. Saylor Foundation has about 280 courses up on its site. Washington has signed an agreement with Coursera as one of the 33, and there are ways in which Coursera is being used as a platform by University of Washington for University of Washington students. And EAC and Coursera have signed a agreement about credit, EAC credit for Coursera. And finally, on November 13th of this year, I think a milestone example, AC, American Council on Education, agreed to 10 Coursera courses, the idea of providing a assessment on those, and then that assessment, the results of the assessment on a AC transcript, which then could be used by students for transfer to a degree institution. Of course, has 200 courses. Of those courses, ACE has chosen 10. UC has 2 of those courses in advance, so we're going to be following through on that. It's a quick headline for the Saylor Foundation, University of Washington and Coursera, Matkin University, and again, the first instance is in which open education is being used for credit in an institution. Here, again, ACE agreement. It will evaluate and assess and provide recommendations. It says courses here, but I think they expanded it to 10, so forth. You can transcript. The ACE transcript, of course, is accepted at the discretion of the institution awarded degree, but about 2,000 of the 4,600 institutes in the United States have accepted ACE credit. So it's for the first time, it's placing open results of open courseware, open learning in the national credit banking system, you might say. And so to me, that's a real breakthrough. So again, that's what I said, these last 2 bullets. Through 4 or 5 minutes, 3 minutes or 4 minutes, my predictions about MOOCs. And again, I'm going this quickly. They're available on the slides, but it's important for, I think, all to make some predictions about what's going to happen with MOOCs so that we can begin to adjust our behavior if we want to in our institutions for what will actually happen. First, macro level, higher institutions will embrace online education in all its forms. In education used actually even in classroom-based instruction. So the notion of this forum is to talk about online education. Well, MOOCs will definitely push online education forward. In my institutions, for the first faculty are coming to us and saying, we put our stuff open up on Coursera, whatever. That's a tipping point for us. Secondly, there will be rapid advance in the creation and use of open education. I've already made that point. Third, we're talking about the E thing as an example. The increase in the use of transfer credits will be, there will be in the use of transfer credits toward degrees. That's a trend that's already clearly established in American higher education, with most on an average graduating from a 4-year institution with 3, at least the results of at least 3 institutions on their trend. So this accelerates that. It's good for higher education one way or another. I've already made that connection, and we see it happening already. Next, on the macro level, it will be an important factor in the use of new instructional technology by all institutions. Coursera platform, Udacity platform, and CEDD platforms begin to incorporate some apps, including social networking and so forth, that are available even now in most places. Those technologies will be adopted and be adopted more readily with the example of MOOCs being in front of everybody. From peer-to-peer interactions, we're also seeing peer evaluations occur very effectively, I think, in Coursera. And peer-to-peer, although MOOCs are really a huge crowd of folks, we see examples where people say in Washington, D.C. will say, any of you who want to come and discuss our course, meet at Starbucks on the corner of a certain corner, and 5 people show up and some of the learning community face-to-face, it's out of a MOOC that was really a crowd, a massive open course. So really more and more interactions like that, and that really will in learning. To something earlier, the legitimacy of degree alternative certifications such as competency-based assessments will become more and more important and acceptable. I talked about this before. Competency-based assessments for degree and non-degree education will become more important. Level happen with MOOCs proliferate as the number of channels and the number of institutions engaged in them. So right now, Coursera is cutting out a lot of institutions. They're good institutions, but since they're only the top 50, a lot of them are cut out. Well, those institutions will find ways of doing MOOCs. In fact, we're seeing now existing concern among institutions going to the MOOC and on free courses within their own networks to their own students. And so we'll see a lot of different channels opening up in terms of how MOOCs will move. And I do not believe that MOOCs are a past fancy. They're, as I said, of a continuing development of open courseware and the seeking of lower-cost, high-quality education. Content driver. When I mean content, I mean that people select MOOCs because of what they're going to learn, not as they're a part of a pattern of course and a degree or whatever, but because specifically they want to learn something about world history or computer programming or something like that, and that will continue the most significant reason that people actually come to a particular online treatment. Elite continue to engage in MOOCs for reputational and revenue-generating reasons. We start having that people are jumping quotes on the freight train. An article just appeared this morning, I think, in the Chronicle of Higher Education, with that sort of as an example. People want to get in there with all the other top universities until they're left out if they aren't. So reputational reasons, at least initially, drive elite universities, but second and third tier institutions will engage in MOOCs to reduce costs and in some cases improve instruction, because the technology in improving instruction will be more apparent as MOOCs get more and more sophisticated. Level, the average enrollment and size of MOOCs will decline as we get more and more of them. We're already seeing that. MOOCs will specialize, and institutes will specialize along subject matter lines. Next, like everybody's putting up any course they can think of, but pretty soon we'll see a series of courses and learning objectives that will have multi-course duration to them. Technology will incorporate functions, utilities to serve MOOCs, that's for sure. We're going to get plugins on Moodle and Blackboard has already announced this. Moodle, I'm not sure what they've done, but we're lining that up because we're going to go to Moodle 2.3 pretty soon. And we know that the technology, LMS technology, will adapt to do this. And MOOC technology and institution will contain service features, and which will be free and some of which will require a fee. Finally, again at the micro level, monetization strategies will get some way. Coursera is going to start sending some money to universities. I don't know how, but they've got to do it. They want to keep those universities as part of the channel, and they will receive enough revenue to cause them to continue to supply content. All universities will become more flexible and accepting non-traditional learning assessments. Finally, through this, to be successful at implementing online and open education on your campus, whether it's MOOCs or whatever, you need to have flexible staff, inventory of open content, technical infrastructure, people that's institute in the online world, structure that supports online instruction, education, certainly invest in it, and increasingly we need constant international partnerships and so forth in order to exist in this very complex world. Technical capacity, again, not only technical infrastructure, but the technical capacity and resource allocation and planning. A quick down on my take on what's happening in the world in education and with regard to MOOC, and I'd be happy to questions if I can figure out how to do that. Let's see.
Well, thank you for your chat box. You should be able to view the questions.
Okay, just a sec. I pull up chat box by clicking on what?
If you go up to that little green, hit that, and then that'll give
chat, right?
Yeah, head on chat.
Okay.
So if any questions, please address those to everyone using the WebEx chat box.
And I'm looking. I still here. I don't know. Any questions? Let me know. I'm not getting any questions.
Are you seeing the chat box?
See box, and I click on it, but I don't get anything other than a list of names.
Participant box.
Yeah, chat, and I. Excuse me. Could you get the chat box? I'm hitting it.
Okay.
I want for. I'm sorry. Asked. Could you expand more on the issue of non-completion rates or completion rates for MOOCs? Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting subject because you see in the newspaper, including today, a whole bunch of criticisms of MOOCs because of things that traditional universities value very highly, such as completion rates. That makes sense when you're talking about MOOCs, because an open educational process, and people are coming to it for all kinds of different reasons, and some of them don't want to complete it, and want to defer 2 chapters and get an idea and go away, or read the second chapter about the history of China or whatever. And it's in their way, and they have all the ideas that they want to do it, but they can't, and so forth. Well, that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be people who complete have really dedicated themselves to it, and if you have very rigorous courses, you're going to have very high dropout rate in terms of completion rate. But not the point of this whole exercise. The point is not to be like what's room in a university. It's to be else. And so, to me, the recent this today, he was saying, we have this non-completion. It's really not like a course that universities present. Exactly. What's between a textbook and a class? You can learn from a textbook. And in a class, well, you can learn from a MOOC. You can use it as a class, or it can even be part of a class. So the rate for me is a not metric to use about effectiveness. In fact, no measure effectiveness that can really be applied to MOOCs, except possibly ultimately assessment. What are the learning outcomes? That's the most important thing, and that's what we're beginning to work on. We're working on the assessment side, and once we get that worked out, then I think completion rate, non-completion rate will be fixed ground, and we'll get how many people successful successfully support. So I hope that I'm seeing the next one from Stephen. It says, what sort of leadership university required? Top-down, faculty-initiated? I do absolutely feel that there needs to be institutional will exercised at some level. That is, a unit like University Extension or a distance learning center can go only so far, and ultimately the benefits derive primarily to the institution as a whole, rather than any individual unit or any individual faculty member. So somewhere along the line, there has to be institutional volition, and usually that must be established by the campus. Although in some cases it can be established by the faculty, I think, through academic senates or initiatives of faculty groupings. But again, it's more likely, I think, because of complexity and the costs and so forth, to be real top-down, sort of issue. Says Clayton Christensen has written about disrupting the education system and using online. So, is that what we're seeing with these Coursera and ACE? Yes, we have our option of what's disruptive, missionary, ends along like a MOOC and shocks the system. Everybody starts talking disruption, and there's always, when something new like this gets introduced, there's always a rushing to the extreme. Oh my gosh, campuses are going to go away in the next 2 or 3 years, and we're all going to be sitting in front of our screens doing this, or online education is going to be campus, go to your room kind of thing, where campus life is going to be completely dead. That doesn't make sense. It's not a really great prediction. Existing methods of education, including this lecture in front of 400 students, is not going to go away anytime soon. Probably shouldn't. What we are going to be able to do is get more and more effective learning and teaching methods available to more and more students and faculty members, and that's going to be positive change, I think. Whether you call it disruptive or not, I'm not sure. But that on our campus, the best faculty, the faculty are most interested in teaching, are interested in their teaching and most dedicated to their teaching, are the ones that are using these technologies the quickest. So I see it as an evolutionary process. Maybe evolution is occurring very more rapidly now, but in that way rather than disruptive. So then, how do you see quality of MOOCs evolving? Being from Elite U does not necessarily assure quality. I definitely agree with that. I think that, again, it's hard, a little maybe big to say this, but obviously people can come in MOOCs with very low barriers to entry and leaving, unlike in a program where you have to get your degrees. So the market evaluations of quality will be very important in this. And those institutions or those offerings that are not at quality, whether it's determined by the academic treatment and the academic learning pathways, or the vessels and flash and analogies, what the mix is of establishing quality, it will be established by the market, and the market will tell what it is from their standpoint. So I agree with you that just because it comes from an elite university does not mean that we've got assured. See tools like flipping the classroom as being part of this evolution. Absolutely. We're bringing more stuff up open and online and open. And for instance, the engineering school, which has a philosophy of making every course sort of project, they're particularly interested in doing this flipping the classroom stuff, where they decant a lot of what they were doing in lectures and so forth to an online and even an open space, and then using the classroom to do projects and interact with students. So I definitely see MOOCs first as push kind of thing forward, as more people see how effective learning and can be in an online and open situation. I've read out on campus paying students being unhappy about courses that they're paying a lot and to be able to be taken for to refine what students are paying for. I think that we is somewhat confused, particularly in the headlines and the hype on these things about what they're really getting. When you see a high quality course on world history from, or a high quality course on integrated circuits from Harvard MIT, you're looking at something that's, as I said, more like a opportunity for people. Right now, it's basically at what I would call a course level, this degree level. We will soon get to full degrees available online, and the assessments are there and so forth. That's going to be quite an experience in attending MIT or UC Irvine or Berkeley, whatever, and an undergraduate degree. So I see that there's two big markets in education. One is what I would call the part-time degree convenience of working at the market, which really is interested in convenience and effect value and so forth. And there's a residential degree for 18 to 25-year-olds, which is really a life sort of defined experience that has not only the education but also the dependent and so forth, and learning on your own and so forth. So I think the residential degree is not going to go away anytime soon, particularly for younger students, but the real change will be in the part-time degree working adult group. Let's see. John says, can you talk a little about UCI agreement with Coursera for AC certified? Maybe on any issues. Well, right now, we have the contract. Definitely will tell you the contract has a lot of open items on it, and big items. The contract was developed sort of in a rush by Coursera, and for the most part, it was signed in a rush by institutions. And frankly, some of the institutions really think through the implications of what they signed when they signed it. They were so anxious to get in on it. But the Coursera is going out to universities some way, sooner rather than later. Pressure on them right now to do that. So what they're talking about really is can help you promote some of your own programs to these students. Would that be accommodation for you? There are other ways through assessments we can make money and so forth. So they're looking at that. But there's no, and I'm to the CEDD issue and would know specific examples, concrete examples of where they think we can make and they can make money, and I can tell you it's not there yet. And so just trying to figure out what to do on the university side. And so that's one thing. The other thing is this whole issue that I mentioned before about how our name gets on some sort of learning assessment that somebody could take to an employer or another university. We have contracts, so they have to get our permission specifically to do that. And while some institutions, I think, have signed a contract that allows them to just put the name or Coursera certificate. So that's still being worked out, I think. Do you know funding sources who support faculty to develop MOOCs? Well, the Gates Foundation has recently announced a series of about $50,000 per course to specific institutions for specific courses, and so that's the most extensive and the publicized source of funding I've seen. But I think most institutions are struggling to try to figure out how they can spend between $10,000 and sometimes $50,000 on putting a course up on Coursera, for instance. And edX is going to have even stronger, more rigorous standards for what goes up there, and the stronger and more rigorous you get, the more expensive usually it is. So I think it's, in fact, the original MIT edX was that you had to spend $125,000 to put a course up, to really create a course on edX, on MITx, and that was like way out of bounds for anything I've recently. But you get the idea that is beginning to struggle, and that's why, because people have institutions put so much money into these things, that's why I'm looking for some money back. So that's what I see. Maybe that's the last question I see.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time and all of your insight. And I appreciate you joining us. And our audience as well. This is final webinar in this particular series for this semester as it is, but we will be picking back up from the end of January or the beginning of February with a similar theme, or perhaps moving more into some. So again, and thanks everyone else for joining us. Gary, have any final remarks for our audience?
I hope everyone has a happy holiday, and maybe you can take some time over the holiday to enroll in a MOOC and see what it's like.
That'd be great. Again, everyone, and this is John Slater signing out. Happy holidays. Sarah?